evening. Happy Thursday. My name is Dr. Tami Prince, and you are watching Health Tips with the Nation's Bedside Doctor on Clark TV Network, where we believe in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Look, I get my weekend started on Thursday because if I wait until Friday, the weekend is gone. It's over. So today is my weekend. I hope it is yours, and I am here to unwind with you. I have needed it. On this show, we have real talk on real issues that affects our communities every single day. Of course, as always, I always have a guest with me, and today with me is Dr. Aaliyah Brown.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm happy to be here.
So I'm going to give you a little bit more background on Aaliyah in a second, but you know how I do. I like to give you a little 5-minute consult on what is latest and greatest in the medical field. So here we go. Let's get in the know. Have you ever eaten something that sounds healthy but really isn't? According to the FDA, the most recent health and diet survey, nearly 50% of adults report that they sometimes, rarely, or never read nutritional labels.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
I can believe that. Well, we look around at the population is changing in terms of weight and what is going into food and preservatives, processed foods.
Yes, yep. all of that. But reading is fundamental.
Correct.
You need to read the nutritional labels to know what you're putting into your body, because what sounds healthy may not actually be healthy. Take, for instance, yogurt.
Yep.
Like you would think yogurt is
healthy
good
because it's dairy.
Exactly. But those flavored ones, they can pack enough sugar. You might as well have just drank a whole thing of sweet tea.
Or candy bar.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So you have to be very careful with those granola.
Yep.
Same thing. Granola, you think it sounds really healthy.
Right.
Like, okay,
fiber,
I'm about to get my fiber. I'm about to get my nuts and grains.
Sugar, a lot of it.
Sugar. You have to be very careful with that.
Fruit snacks, too.
Yes.
It's not fruit.
It's not fruit. Veggie straws. Okay, let's talk about the veggie straws. You know, a lot of people, myself included, when I was growing up, did not like vegetables.
Right.
Now I, as an adult, like it. But trying to get me to eat vegetables was like pulling teeth.
Yep.
And so they came out with these veggie straws. And, it sounds great. You're getting all your veggies in.
No, not a substitute.
Not a substitute. Get the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just want you to, I always advocate knowing what you're putting into your body.
Yep.
Is so important because, later down the road when we're dealing with, chronic issues and things like that, we want to know where we can pinpoint that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it your diet that needs to be changed? And is it, something else environmental that, you're around that we need to get you out of in order to get you healthy? So it is so important to be able to read those labels. And what are we looking for when we're doing those labels? We're looking for fats.
Yes. And sometimes if it says fat-free, it might have a lot of sugar. Yep. So you got to look at fat, calories, and the amount of sugar.
All of that. You look at your cholesterol in it.
Trans fat.
Yep. You look at your sodium.
That's a big one.
That's a big one. Sodium is naturally frozen. Oh my God! Not only frozen, but the canned foods. They have a lot of sodium in it. So be careful with that, especially if you're already predisposed, like you have a family history of high blood pressure. You don't want to develop it.
Right.
You want to control that.
Right.
And one way to do it is to watch that diet and make sure that is not the case. Also, with the enriched flours.
Oh, yes.
So those white refined flours are also bad for us as well. You do need some carbohydrates, but they got to be the good kind of carbs and not the bad kind, which is what's in a lot of these snack foods nowadays. So we want you to snack throughout the day, but snack healthy, like for real healthy. I'm talking about
almonds,
carrots, peanut butter, a small piece of fruit, things like that, as opposed to, eating a whole bag of veggie straws and chips and things like that. So I'm going to get off my soapbox about that. But it's true.
Yeah.
And I want you to be healthy, okay? I don't tell you
And
anything
fast
on this.
food is a problem.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
they make it very convenient for us.
Look, you drive through.
Yes.
You
Everything's
get it
a
right
dollar.
away.
So
Yes.
you can feed a whole family, but a lot of the things that are in these foods are bad. It's like a lot of processed meat and things like that are just unhealthy.
You got to be careful with that. You know, I always say everything in moderation.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't
I love
necessarily.
a good burger.
Let me tell you, I
Correct.
love me some waffle fries from my favorite. I can't really say,
Right.
but
Every
it's in
now and then a
moderation.
treat. That's right.
It's in moderation. I eat well about 80% of the time, and
Yeah.
20% is whatever I feel like. And the reason I do that is because I don't want to ever deprive myself of anything.
Right.
Because when I get it, I'm going to binge on it. So if I get that urge to have some waffle fries, let me go ahead and do it.
And it's over.
And it's over. Right. I don't need it again for a few months sometimes.
Right.
So I'm good.
Right.
Okay. So don't beat yourself up if you drove through the drive-through right before I came on tonight. It's okay. Okay, we get it. But just make sure that you get back on the bandwagon tomorrow.
That's right.
Okay. And just stay healthy. Just stay vigilant about what you're putting into your body. So when we come back, we are going to come back discussing a very important topic, skin cancer. It's May, Skin Cancer Awareness Month, and it is so appropriate because we're getting ready to get into these summer months. So Dr. Brown is here with me to dissect that all out. We're going to come right back. Stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss it.
I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. And even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. I have a mentor, Maria, and she convinced me to continue my education. Just never judges. She's a true role model. From the depths of my heart, I thank you, Maria, for being a friend and a beautiful person. No one receives a diploma alone, and I'm honored to share this moment with you. Thank you. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Not completing high school is more of a social thing.
Sometimes the things we do or say can make others feel hurt,
Such a weirdo.
excluded, or isolated. Everything you say and do creates an impact.
How am I supposed to save the whole world?
You can't think about saving the world. You have to think about saving one person.
Because of you, someone's entire life can change. You don't have to be a superhero to have a positive impact.
Friends?
Friends.
Good.
I don't remember how it started.
Throw it to Dad.
Oh boy.
We just found it. Our back and forth. Victory. Fumble. Repeat. It always came back.
Dad!
Whoa!
You made time.
That was perfect.
Okay, here we go, throw it!
Yeah.
You probably don't remember what you told me.
Nice.
But I heard every word.
We are back from break. Thank you for staying with us. I have with me my guest, Dr. Aaliyah Brown. Now, she is the Vice President and Co-Managing Partner for Gwinnett Dermatology PC, which is getting ready to actually do a name change because they moved closer into town,
That's
thankfully.
right.
So when later, I guess, in the year, they're going to be changing the name to Georgia Dermatology Partners. So be on the lookout for that.
Yes.
But they are a big group. They initially came out of Gwinnett, now coming into the Brookhaven area, servicing all of Atlanta.
And Gwinnett still.
Because it is so hard to find a good dermatologist, let me tell you. And they are great people.
Yes.
They are a great referral basis for me. So I just appreciate you so much for taking the time out to come and talk with us about this very serious topic, skin cancers.
Yes.
You know, this is the time of year where we're getting a lot more sun exposure, getting our vitamin D, but also sometimes that can be to our detriment if we are not covering ourselves properly or protecting ourselves properly. So skin cancer is very serious, and it can happen to anybody.
Correct.
You know, just for the viewers out there, skin cancer is abnormal growths on the skin cells, basically. And so it can develop in areas that are exposed to the sun. So usually it's going to be on your arms,
head and neck
face,
area,
neck, things that are more exposed than say your feet or on your legs, but they can occur anywhere. Okay, let me give you some statistics on it. It's actually the most common cancer in the U.S. Now, the skin is actually the largest organ. Most people don't necessarily think of the skin as being an organ,
right?
And so the skin is the largest organ, so it doesn't come as a shock to me that it is the most common of the cancers, okay? So this is really why we need to be talking about it.
Absolutely.
Because it's preventable. Current estimates are that 1 in 5 Americans will develop skin cancer in their lifetime.
Yes.
That's astonishing. That's a staggering figure. And it's estimated that approximately 9,500 people in the U.S. are diagnosed every single day. Does that surprise you?
No, not at all. I mean, it is so common, and that's why we recommend annual surveillance, because a lot of sun damage actually occurs before you're 25 years old. So people think, oh, well, I don't have to put sunscreen on even as a child or even as a teen, but a lot of the damage occurs so early. So,
and matter of fact, let's talk about that kind of damage, because most people think, oh, it's just a little sunburn, that's not going to hurt me, but that actually increases your risk.
Yes, sunburn especially increases your risk for melanoma. Now, the other types of skin cancer usually have to do with sun exposure over your lifespan, but burning is a direct increased risk factor for melanoma, which is the most dangerous cancer.
Yes, and that's the one that is the deadliest as well. So we definitely want to guard against getting all of them, but most particularly that melanoma.
That's right.
I said that patients of all colors can get it.
Absolutely.
People are under the assumption that ethnic people like us cannot get it because we have melanin that generally is protective to us. But when people of color get it, we get it in different places.
Correct. So skin of color, usually if you get a melanoma, it can be in an acral site like your hands and feet. But as you mentioned earlier, typical skin cancer like your basal cell or squamous cells skin cancers have to do with the amount of sun exposure you've had. So those are more likely to be in sun exposed areas like your face, your chest, your back, hands, arms.
People forget their ears too.
Ears
I've
are
diagnosed
huge,
it on the ears as well,
especially in men or even women with short hair. The scalp in women that have lighter colored hair.
Yeah. So.
The eyes.
Now, one of the most unlikely places that people of color can get is underneath the fingernails.
Yep, the nail is. We've seen it alive in color. I mean, the hands and feet are a biggie. So if you go get a skin check, it's important to not have nail polish on so that we can really evaluate the nail. And even we look in between the toes, we look underneath the feet, we look throughout the scalp because a lot of people have growths that they're unaware of.
And, you know, speaking of the scalp, I've had hairstylists tell me that they've diagnosed, they don't necessarily diagnose, but they see a growth and they say, look, you need to go and see your physician because this doesn't look normal to me. And I think that they're teaching them that in school, this is what you look for.
Yes.
Because you're the best person. Like,
right.
They're looking at our scalp. We're not necessarily looking at her. We're just combing our hair.
Right. Especially in the back of the scalp. It could be a flat lesion that you don't even feel, but you can see it. So you may not see it if it's on your scalp, but your stylist may.
Exactly. So, I know it may cost money to go to the stylist, but it's actually beneficial in the long run to do that. So let's talk about the different types.
Sure.
Okay. We're going to talk about the first type, which is actinic keratosis. If we can put that that picture up about actinic keratosis, we'll, as we're describing it, you'll be able to see it on the monitor shortly. So these are like dry, scaly patches, right?
They're dry, scaly, rough places that are typically sensitive. So I tell people feel for something gritty like sandpaper on your skin. If you go to put moisturizer on your skin and it burns, that typically is a signal that that's an area that is a pre-cancer. So we call actinic keratosis, layman's term, we say pre-cancer. And that is the precursor for skin cancer, but that can be reversible. So when that is diagnosed, oftentimes there are treatments that we can do to reverse that so that the skin can go back to having normal cells.
I remember when I was in medical school shadowing a dermatologist, we would routinely diagose, we call it AK, actinic keratosis, and we would do it by cryotherapy. And we would just go right up usually it was in somebody who's like in construction. Who, they're always out in the sun. We would do it on the ear. We would do it everywhere. But they're just these white little scaly patches.
Rough patches.
And it looks like, okay, maybe I have some dry skin.
Right.
And how do you tell the difference?
Right. So that sensitivity is key. That gritty texture is key. Some people, they try to peel the skin. That is not a good idea.
Peel it.
But the sign that it's not just dry skin is lotion is not going to take it away. If you peel it, they usually come back.
So, when you see that, it's best to go ahead and get that treated because, once again, it is a precursor to something else that could easily have been
preventable.
So we want to, I'm a big stickler on prevention.
Preventative care. That's what I say every day to my patients. If you come in, we will find it if you come in routinely. Because a lot of things are curative if you are coming in.
I think, a lot of people just are of the assumption, it'll go away, or I don't have time to go to the doctor, or it's nothing.
The sooner the better, because it can be a small thing, but when you delay, it can be more.
Exactly. So, when we're talking about the age groups of the different types of cancers, this particular one usually happens after the age of 40, correct? Because of the years of sun exposure?
It does. You mean the precancers?
Mm-hmm.
It can, but I've had people with precancer even in their late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
If they had a lot of sun growing up, if they're fair complected, if they use the tanning bed, for instance, if they're from a southern state like Florida where it's a lifestyle to be in the sun all the time.
Right. So just because you're
young
doesn't mean that you can't get this.
Absolutely.
Just because you're old doesn't mean that you can't get this either. Any age group can get this. So let's talk about another kind, which is basal cell carcinoma. If we can get that graphic up about basal cell carcinoma, because it's actually the most common
absolutely,
of all the skin cancers. Is that correct?
Yep. That is true.
And describe what a basal cell carcinoma would look like.
So they can have different looks, but the typical standard basal cell is a papule that looks a lot like an acne bump. So we call it like a pearly papule. Oftentimes it will bleed spontaneously, so you don't even have to agitate it for it to bleed on its own. This is a very slow-growing type of cancer. The good thing, so there is a silver lining, is that it does not typically ever metastasize. However, there have been very few reported cases. But basal cell is not life-threatening. The issue is that it does not go away on its own. So if you get a basal cell in a cosmetically sensitive area, it can become disfiguring. I've seen people's half of their ear get removed because of the cancer eating at their ear. It can be ulcerative as well. So it's a non-healing wound that just gets larger and larger and larger. And then another presentation is a red, scaly, angry patch that looks almost like how a pink scar would look, but it just does not go away. And it will gradually expand and get bigger.
So did you hear that? It's not going away.
It does
no
not
matter how
go
much
away.
you wish it away,
No.
pray it away, will it away.
That's right.
It's not going away.
Yeah.
So you have to go and see a dermatologist.
That's right.
Even if you see your primary doctor is still going to send you to the dermatologist.
And a lot of them will even do the initial biopsy, and once they have the confirmation that it's a basal cell, send them to us, and we have specialized surgeons that can cut them out and make it very cosmetically suitable for people. We want it to be minimal scarring, especially on the head and neck area.
Absolutely. I mean, that's your
face
brand. That's your face. So
everybody sees that.
Exactly. So of course, people are very self-conscious. Oh my God, I don't want to get cut on my face, or I don't want any treatment on my face. Well, the alternative is going to be disfigurement.
Right.
So either way.
Right. And that's why
something has to happen.
Right. So my office, my partner, Dr. Keith Wright, he's a Mohs surgeon. That's a specialized type of skin cancer removal
What does Mohs
process.
stand
Well, Mohs
for?
is actually not an acronym. It's named after the person that came up with this technique.
That's right.
That is able to get clear margins from the skin cancer with doing minimal collateral damage to tissue. So we're able to get a clear margin before you're even sewn up and repaired. So that is really good for cosmesis.
Absolutely. So, definitely get this checked out.
Before it gets too large.
Before it gets too large.
Right.
And then we have to actually do more surgery that will probably cause a lot more scarring and damage in the process. Third type, squamous cell carcinoma.
Yes.
So squamous cell is actually the second
most common. Squamous cell is the second most common. There are several types, but squamous cell can be very high risk. And the reason is because it does have the ability to metastasize to lymph nodes. So someone could get a squamous cell, it go to a lymph node, and then it travel to their lung and be a squamous cell lung cancer. So high-risk areas are the head and neck for sure, because there's a lot of lymph nodes in that region. Also, areas such as the lip, because it doesn't have far to travel. So people that chew tobacco, smokers, people that have just been in extensive sun and they've got sun on their lips from playing golf or tennis, these areas are high-risk locations.
Yes.
Sometimes squamous cell can present like a red scaly patch as well. Sometimes it can present like a large volcano-looking growth. That's a particular type called a keratoacanthoma. And people have thought it was a boil or a bug bite because it comes up so fast and it grows within a month's time period.
The key is too not to rupture it because, of course,
Right.
the
Well, it could get angry
it
and
could get
infected and larger.
Exactly. And so, you know, a lot of people see a little bump
And
and
they
want
wanna
to
put
pick
a
at
pin.
it or put
Yeah.
a pin in
Yes.
it or
Yeah.
bust it.
Right, right. Let us look at it
Exactly.
and do what needs to be done.
Let the specialists do what they need to do. Don't you take, you know, matters into your own hands.
But typically when those are diagnosed, when caught early, people do extremely well. But that you just do not want to delay.
Exactly. And that's the goal is, you know, we're trying to, I don't know how else we can say it,
But
but
we
we're just
wanna-
going to keep saying it throughout.
Right.
Don't
Delay.
delay.
Yeah.
We know that you may be scared. We
Right.
get that and we appreciate that. But please, this is your health
Right.
and well-being on the line.
Right.
And we want you to be able to get the help early.
Absolutely.
Early. So, you know, intervention,
Early diagnosis.
early
is key.
diagnosis, prevention,
Yes.
all of that is key to being successful with this treatment. The final and most deadliest of all of them is the melanoma.
Correct. And
Let's
May
talk
is
about
actually skin cancer, but also melanoma awareness month. So melanoma can be life-threatening, even in very young patients. There is a small genetic component to melanoma. So we even diagnose people that haven't had a lot of skin or sun exposure with melanoma.
Have they been able to pinpoint the gene that's causing it?
Not directly. I mean, there's the CDKN2A
Yes.
gene.
Don't remember none of that.
Right. So they are getting even more sophisticated with figuring out what gene it's on so that then we can figure out what therapies patients will respond better to, especially like immunotherapy, which is a new type of way to treat a lot of cancers. But we've seen people do very well that had metastatic melanoma with these newer therapies.
Yeah, melanoma is not a death sentence. You know, a lot of people hear, oh, I've got melanoma, I'm going to die. No, not necessarily. It's still preventable.
It is when caught early. So early means if you catch it before it goes to a lymph node, upwards of about 95% clearance rate. Once it goes to a lymph node, it drops down to about 63%. So that's a big jump. So that's why
That's a huge jump.
Yes. So that's why, you know, annual skin checks are critical because if we're looking at you every year, most likely we will see it. And then once it metastasizes, it goes down to 23%. And we don't want it to get to that point,
Yes, so
obviously.
let's not get to that point.
That goes back to that don't delay thing.
Exactly.
If you have an abnormal molar growth and it's changing.
Exactly. Can we get a graphic up for the melanoma? Because I want you all to be able to see what this looks like. And we're going to actually go through the alphabet, the
Yes,
A, B, C, D, E,
CDEs.
right? Because this is how
The
you
acronym
can
is easy to-
guide whether or not this is a normal mole
Right.
or a normal bump versus
Right,
a
and that-
non-normal one. So what's A?
A is asymmetry. So if you were to take a mole or a freckle and fold it in half, ideally you want it to look pretty much the same on both sides. So visually in your mind, try to fold it in half. If one side looks completely different than the other side, that would be a reason to have that evaluated.
Absolutely. What's B?
B is border. So I always tell patients you don't want your mole or freckle to look like a puzzle piece or a cloud. You know, it might not be perfectly round, but we want nice smooth edges and a nice smooth border.
C.
C is color. So people may have different variation in color for different moles on their body, but you should not have variation within the same mole. So if you have a singular mole and it has multiple colors within that mole, that is a reason to have it checked. It should not have brown and black and pink and white
and red or any other color
It should
spectrums.
be a uniform appearing color.
And most moles are brownish.
Most moles are brown. Now, it depends on your complexion.
Yep,
though.
some can be, little
Flesh
colors.
Right.
But whatever your normal is, it should be that throughout.
Correct.
Uniform.
Correct.
What is D?
D is diameter. This one's a little bit tricky because some people are born with birthmark moles.
Yep.
And those typically are of a certain size. They can be bigger than that 6 millimeters that is our typical cutoff. But for a standard mole, you don't want it larger than 6 millimeters or this pencil head or pinky eraser. I said that backwards,
You said
but
that.
it's
That's
basically,
okay. That's okay.
I tell women use the tip of your pinky, and then I tell men, because they have larger fingers, but the pencil head eraser.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. How about E?
E is actually new to the ABCDE
It is, because it used to, I remember when we were in school, it was A, B, C, D, E, but now they've added E.
E is important because it stands for evolution or evolving. So if you have a mole that is new, or a mole that is existing, but it is changing. That would be a reason to have it checked. Different things can make your moles change. Pregnancy, for instance. Hormonal changes can make your moles change. So we like to see pregnant women during pregnancy and then even again after. They deliver. Absolutely.
Yeah, because the hormones are changing all
Absolutely.
throughout the pregnancy and then after.
There have been multiple reported cases of melanoma in pregnant women.
Yeah, I had one diagnosed in a patient because I noticed it on exam. I said, that doesn't look right. Let's get you to a dermatologist. And sure enough, bam.
See,
sure enough. So definitely make sure that you are checking all. I mean, we all have moles of some sort.
Check your family. Have someone look at your back every month. Check your kids. We've had juvenile melanoma, even in children.
And how should people check? There's a body map.
Yeah.
Is there not?
There is.
To help people remember how to check.
Yeah. It's kind of, it can be fun, especially if there are multiple people in the family. And,
Be like a little game.
Exactly. But most people can see their front side, but the back and even the back of the legs and even the back side is critical. I mean, we've had people with skin cancer on their buttock area, especially if they laid in the tanning bed without clothes on. So.
I always say people forget these ears.
The ears are important, and even your private area. A lot of people don't like to talk about that, and they don't like to look there, but you can have melanoma on the vulva. You can have squamous cell on the penis.
You can have it in the groin, all of that area, on the testicles, everywhere.
And a lot of older people aren't getting pap smears after a certain age, so they don't know what's going on down there. So it's important to monthly just look and assess.
And, even though you may not be getting pap smears, I still, in my older GYN patients, I will still do an exam just to take a look, a once over, just to make sure, like you're saying, that we don't have these areas in the vulva.
I just had a woman with squamous cell in the vaginal area, and she was not due for a pap smear for 5 years because she's over 75. But
here we are.
Exactly.
Here we are. So we definitely need to follow our alphabet and follow, the body map.
And when in doubt, just have it evaluated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, going back to melanoma, I did want to make a point that this is the second most common form of cancer in females, ages 15 to 29.
And you hear how young that is.
Yeah, 15 to 29.
Yeah. A lot of that has to do with what is happening during those years, and that's a lot of extreme.
Well, they're playing outside.
But the tanning bed and the UV lamps, the artificial solar lamps are
let's talk about that, because that's one of the risks
they are more detrimental than the regular sun, and the regular sun is already terrible for our skin, but they're getting a lot of damage that's concentrated in a small amount of time. So that's why you see younger individuals with melanoma type skin cancer versus, you know, the baby boomer generation with the basal cell and the squamous cell, because they were just in regular sun.
So what do you tell a patient when a patient says, Doc, I have to have a tan?
I tell them to spray tan. Yeah, these spray tans are getting very sophisticated.
Yeah.
They, you know, are vegan free.
They're not coming off.
Gluten-free.
They're not coming off on your clothes as
They're
much
not.
anymore.
They don't have a bad smell anymore. You know. So
yeah. So
and the same thing with the vitamin D. I have a lot of people that say, "Oh, you know, I'm vitamin D deficient. My doctor said," and I say, "Well, you can take a supplement for that. But once you've damaged your skin to where it's irreparable, it's really hard to reverse that.
Yeah.
Because once you start growing a skin cancer, if you grow one skin cancer, your risk for another is 50%. So
you've already just halved your I mean, chances. Wow.
Right.
So why would you even
take
want
the
to
risk?
You know, take the risk and put yourself in that predicament? Spray tan.
Absolutely.
Spray tan.
I do that when I go to the beach.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't need to lie on you. I used to be one of those people where, you know, people were like, "Well, you already have a tan." I'm like, "Yeah, but I've always wanted to be a little bit darker."
Yeah.
So I'll get out in the sun.
Brown can burn.
Yep.
And then as
burn
you get
and
older,
peel and
as you get older, certain medications make you more sun sensitive too, which increases your risk. So
yeah, absolutely. Some of the other risk factors: skin that burns and bruises easily, blonde and redheads.
That's
Let's
right.
talk about that.
Yeah, the redhead. They with fairer skin, sometimes they have increased risk just even with how much sun they're absorbing. So
yeah,
but they typically are very hypervigilant in the sun because they burn.
There
is no tanning.
Like most of the time, they will get their, and we're going to talk about how do you prevent this, but they're going to get their sunglasses and wide brim hats and long sleeves, and they're okay.
Clothing.
They're protected.
People that are olive, I always tell my patients, they think, "Oh, I'm getting this beautiful tan." You can still grow skin cancer even if you're not burning. So you almost are less, you have your guard down when you tan easily because you are not burning and you're not uncomfortable. So you're not thinking, "Oh, my skin is burning and it hurts. Let me put
that." It's actually maybe almost worse.
It is
because it lulls you into this comfort zone.
This false sense of security that, oh, nothing bad is happening because I'm not burning. But that's not true.
That's not true. That is not true. So once again, skin cancer can happen any race, any color. It has no face.
That's right.
Period. What are some other ones? Weakened immune systems.
Well, for sure. So if you are a transplant patient, organ transplant, kidney transplant, for instance, some of the immunosuppressive medications that you're on actually double to triple your risk for developing skin cancer. So those patients need to be seen probably twice a year. If you've had a history of breast cancer, there isn't a direct linkage, but there's a loose association with breast cancer and melanoma. So you should, even no matter your skin type, have a skin exam.
Yep, absolutely. People that have more than 50 moles.
Yes.
Or multiple moles.
That's right.
Are at risk as well. Why is that?
Well, you just have more solitary concentrated areas of pigment. And so with nevi, which are moles, they can undergo sun damage or they can undergo DNA transformation. That's what cancer is. When you take a normal cell and that cell becomes cancerous. So if you have all these pockets of cells that can transform, then that's what increases the risk.
There you have it, which is all the more reason
to be screened.
full
Body check.
surveillance, full body check. People with freckles, all of that.
Absolutely.
Usually, people that have freckles will burn easily, but not always the case. But yes, you have to, get it checked out. I remember my mom having to have a mole removed. She, has moles everywhere, but there was one in particular behind her ear,
which is hard to see.
Hard to see. But that had to be removed because the doctor was concerned that it would turn to cancer.
Right. Sometimes we will remove things. Anytime we remove something, we assess it under the microscope. If it has abnormal cells and the ability to become precancerous, or it already is precancerous, we usually will go back around and get a clean margin so that we remove that risk factor.
Exactly. And you mentioned it, but there are certain types of cancers that can be associated with melanoma. Breast was one. How about prostate and thyroids? Is there still a loose association with those two?
Yeah.
So, once again, just, make sure that you're talking with your primary doctor too, because your primary doctor may not know, what you're doing with your dermatologist,
and vice versa.
Yeah. And so you need to be having that conversation with your primary doctor. Hey, I went to go see my dermatologist, and I have actinic keratosis, or I have had a mole that was removed because they thought it was precancerous or even cancerous. And so that in turn will then clue your primary doctor, okay, we've got to step up surveillance in other areas for you. So definitely. Now, we talked about when somebody should seek help, like the warning signs. Let's go over those one more time, because we cannot, kind of gloss over this. We need to make sure that you understand what these warning signs are.
Absolutely. So a new growth is always a reason to have it evaluated. I'd also say something that's non-healing, bleeding, something that's changing that you've always had. We've had multiple diagnoses of melanoma in existing moles. People have told me probably weekly, oh, I've had that as long as I can remember. I've had that my whole life. And then it has it can slowly change before your eyes. And if you're looking at it every day, you don't notice these subtle changes. But if you go to have it checked, we're kind of like a fresh set of eyes, and we know what to look for. So it might be something that you didn't see because it was more gradual.
Right, exactly. So when you do diagnose somebody with either the precursor to skin cancer or skin cancer in general, how exactly are you diagnosing this?
Well, precancer, we can diagnose that even without a biopsy. But skin cancer, we always take a biopsy. It goes to the lab. It will be evaluated for those malignant cells. We're able to assess the depth of the malignancy, and then we come up with what the treatment
plan will be.
A lot of it has to do with location and how deep the skin cancer is.
Are there any blood tests that you can use?
That would be wonderful. They're coming up with new ways to survey things all the time. There's not a blood test, but there is a test on the market right now where without doing a biopsy, it's almost like a piece of masking tape that can take some of the cells, send it off, test those cells on that mole to assess if it's high risk or not. If it comes back high risk, because they're actually looking at the genetic profile of those cells. If it comes back high risk, then you take the biopsy. So.
Now, I know that there is a blood test I think that they're using now to basically monitor the treatment surveillance, but not necessarily to diagnose,
So, and a lot of cancers have markers that you can follow to see if the marker is elevated or lowered. That gives you, I guess, a idea of the response to therapy.
So Treatment options obviously will vary depending upon what the cancer is, what
location,
the stage, what the location, everything.
Yes.
Can we talk about some of those treatment options?
So if you're dealing with a head and neck malignancy and it is a basal cell, squamous cell, or melanoma, usually Mohs surgery is indicated. If you are dealing with a melanoma and it is beyond 1 millimeter in depth, so that's it going deeper into the tissue, usually sentinel lymph node biopsy is indicated. Once sentinel lymph nodes are biopsied.
And what's the sentinel lymph node?
So sentinel lymph nodes are the lymph node basin that is adjacent to that particular cancer.
So sentinel meaning the first.
Right. So what we are doing is, and I don't do this, but what the surgeon is doing is injecting a dye to see if the lymph nodes light up. If it lights up, that indicates that the lymph node, which is the first, is positive. That gives us an idea of whether there was malignant spread to those lymph nodes. If there is, then the treatment becomes more structured to how advanced the cancer is. So then imaging is done.
Yes.
PET
What kind of
scan,
imaging can
so
we...
chest x-ray, PET scan, CT scan, just to evaluate other areas and other organ systems near that cancer.
Yeah, because we're looking for metastasis. We're looking to make sure that it has not spread outside of the localized area.
Right.
Because obviously, if it metastasizes, what's the treatment
Then
for that?
we go to systemic chemotherapy, and we enlist our colleagues, which are the oncologists.
And
sometimes we enlist radiation therapy. If you have a squamous cell, that's a very, very responsive cancer to radiation. So if it's in an area or the patient is got a lot of health issues, radiation sometimes is a better treatment because it's more comfortable, actually, versus them having to go through a very extensive surgery. There is a new pill for basal cell, actually.
Really?
Yes.
Tell us about this pill.
It's called Aravage, and people that were deemed non-operable because the cancer was so large or extensive, it showed dramatic shrinkage. There also is a genetic basal cell condition where people grow over 50 to 100 basal cells. So this pill is promising because it's shown extreme benefit to people that just have either a very large cancer that we can't cut out, or they have a lot of health issues and can't withstand a surgery.
Is that pill covered by insurance?
It has been covered, even with people with Medicare. Yeah.
Good. Good. So,
and I only bring that up because a lot of older people have basal cell and they also have Medicare.
Yes,
so
exactly. Because of course sometimes the insurance
it's harder to get newer medicines covered, but
yeah, the you know, of course we're lobbying every single day to make sure that
we want our patients to get the best care.
Exactly. And that includes medicines that we know are going to be successful in treatment.
Absolutely.
And the goal is to do no harm.
Right.
You know, the goal is to make sure that the patients are as comfortable as possible. So we want to make sure that if the treatment is working, that it's covered.
Absolutely.
So how often after you get the diagnosis should you be followed up?
Well, the American Academy of Dermatology suggestion and recommendation is everyone should have an annual skin check. Everyone, even without a history. Now, if you've had a melanoma, you get a lot closer follow-up. And it really just depends on how far out you are from melanoma and how extensive your melanoma was. But just a loose guideline for melanoma is those patients are seen every 6 months. If you have had repetitive basal cells, actinic keratoses, and squamous cells, you probably will be seen every 6 months as well, because a lot of this stuff is preventative when caught sooner. So
now you're getting followed up. What's your likelihood of getting another cancer?
Well, for the basal cell and squamous cell risk, 50%. So pretty high.
Yep.
Yeah. A lot of that has to do with having, sustained the UV damage already. And then as we get older, our immune system is declining. And so the damage that we sustained younger is starting to show itself.
Catch up. It catches
when
everything
we're older.
catches
yes,
up.
That's
with
correct. And then I'll have people say, "Well, is it too late for me?" No, it's not too
it's
late.
not too late.
It's not too
but
late
we
to
need
protect yourself.
We need to
but
stop whatever
yes.
is occurring
Absolutely.
dead in the tracks. So, what are some ways that we can prevent? We alluded to
yes.
it earlier,
Right,
when we were
right.
talking about wide brim hats and things like that. But let's
Yes.
go through.
Multiple ways. I mean, there are so many different ways to prevent sun damage, down to even your daily moisturizer, having SPF 30. I always tell my patients 30 is the new 15. So 15 is not
Explain
adequate.
what SPF actually
So
is.
that's sun protectant factor.
Yep.
So if you are out in the sun longer than 15 minutes, you start to get sun damage. So 30 is protecting roughly 95% of UVA and UVB rays from absorbing. 50 is protecting 97%. So I tell people daily 30. SPF 30, and then if you're in extreme sun, upwards of 50. And
How often do you need to
reapplication,
reapply? Yes.
every 2 hours.
Every
2
2
hours.
So it sounds like
And
it's
if you're in
cumbersome.
and out of water, or if you're sweating, just put it back on.
Yeah.
But that's where that clothing comes into hand. Wide brim hat, SPF in your baseball cap.
Yeah.
They have
A
all
lot
these.
of clothing
Yes,
is
they
now
have all those materials.
UV
UPF
blocking, and so it's a lot more common to be able to find those kind of
Absolutely.
clothings now.
They're in all the sporting goods stores.
Yeah.
A lot of the kids' fabrics or for kids' swimsuits have them in there.
Yeah, and so long sleeves, long pants. Okay, yes, I know it's summertime, but there are linens and
Right.
and cottons,
Cool, breathable fabric.
But you still need to have that that
Absolutely.
protection.
And the sprays are easier for children. There has been a lot of discussion in the news about chemicals in sunscreen.
Yep, and how long it stays within
Right.
the bloodstream.
Right. So
let's talk about that.
So they have found that there is some level of absorption with the chemical sunscreen. So the chemicals are the ones where you're seeing SPF of whatever number. Unless you're seeing mineral block, usually it has a chemical in it. But they have not been able to say that those chemicals are damaging. So the AAD, which is the American Academy of Dermatology's recommendation, is to still wear sunscreen. If you like more natural things, then the mineral block. So that's your zinc oxide and titanium oxide.
But you need some kind of block.
You need some kind of
So
block.
whichever one you choose, the chemical
Or the mineral.
mineral, choose it.
Right.
Choose it and stick with it. So what's the proper way to put on sunscreen?
You have to rub it in. Most people, if they do the spray, you will miss an area. So it's important not to just spray and not rub it in. So you want to actually spray it, put it on, and then let it sit for 15 minutes before
Before you
going
go
in.
out and
Now,
let it get
I know
good.
most people don't do that because they're
No.
at the pool when they think of it, but I'm happy for people to be more vigilant in putting it on. So
Make sure that you get in between your
Yeah.
hands, in between your toes, like I said, the ears,
Right.
inside, outside, nose,
definitely
scalp.
spray your part line.
Yes, yes.
Or wear a hat.
Or wear a hat.
Yeah.
Or both.
Right. Yeah.
Or both. But just, make sure that you have covered every area that you can possibly in this area.
Absolutely.
Elbows is another one. So, people, just as you're washing in the shower, taking a shower and you're washing all the, that's where you need to be putting your
applying.
sunscreen on pretty much. So, any parting words? We've harped on a lot of it.
Yes. I mean,
but-
I just want to get the word out because this is May, but all throughout the summer. Just be very vigilant. And most things are preventative, and most things are definitely treatable when caught. So early detection, early diagnosis, and yearly checks.
Absolutely. I mean, I cannot get off my soapbox about this.
Yeah.
Just, prevention.
Preventative care
Prevention is key. And like I said, we understand that you're scared, but that's what we're here to help you through that.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. Ignorance is not bliss. So please get checked. I just want to thank Dr. Brown for hanging out with me.
Yes.
And hopefully we have given you a little bit
tips.
more information so that you are in the know and understand and can advocate for yourself properly. So, just to close out, I always like to close out with Trailblazer of the Week. So I choose my Trailblazers. These are physicians, generally minority physicians, who have paved the way for people like myself and Dr. Brown to actually be sitting here giving you the information that you need and being able to treat you. So this week's Trailblazer of the Week is Dr. Dorothy Lavinia Brown, who was born in Philadelphia in 1919. Soon after her birth, her mother, Edna Brown, moved to upstate New York and placed her in an orphanage there. The predominantly white Troy Orphanage was her home from age 5 months until her 13th birthday, when her mother reclaimed her. By that time, however, the orphanage seemed a safer home than the one her estranged mother could provide. So Dr. Brown used to run away. She ran away 5 times back to the orphanage where she sought refuge. As a teen, she worked as a maid and at the Wing Sing Chinese laundry. Determined to get an education, she finally ran away at age 15 to enroll in Troy High School. When the principal realized that she did not have anywhere to stay, he arranged for a foster home with Lola and Samuel Wesley Redmond. They became a major influence throughout Dr. Brown's life as a source of security, support, and enduring values. In 1937, when Dr. Brown graduated from high school, and she graduated at the top of her class, she was awarded a 4-year scholarship to Bennett College in Greensboro, North Carolina. She received her BA in 1941. She graduated second in her class, and she became an inspector for Rochester, New York Army Ordnance Department as part of the war effort. Dr. Brown had wanted to become a physician ever since she was little, ever since she had her tonsils removed even. And so she enrolled in Meharry Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee, where she graduated in 1948. After a year's internship at Harlem Hospital, the next challenge was residency. You and I both know how residency can be. And she chose surgery.
Wow.
So there was no other black woman in general surgery in the South. Can you imagine? And she had to forge through almost universal resistance. She said that, and this is her quote, Dr. Matthew Walker was a brave man because he accepted her into a program despite advice from his staff that a woman could not withstand the rigors of surgery. Can you imagine being told that you can't be a surgeon?
She was persistent. She ran away 7 times.
Boy, I'm trying to tell you.
She was like, "You're not gonna tell me."
I'm trying to tell you. So Dr. Brown worked through a 5-year residency at Meharry and George W. Hubbard Hospital to become assistant professor of surgery in 1955, and the first African American woman to be made fellow of the American College of Surgeons. Wow. Describing her drive to persevere, Dr. Brown has said, quote unquote, I tried to be not hard but durable. From 1957 to 1983, Dr. Brown was chief of surgery at Nashville's Riverside Hospital, clinical professor of surgery at Meharry Medical College, and education director for Riverside Meharry Clinical Rotations Program. She also served as a consultant on health, education, and welfare for the National Institutes of Health. you know, Dr. Brown was so persistent, and she actually became the first single adoptive mother in Tennessee in 1956.
Wow.
There was a patient, a married patient, who had implored the orphanage raised physician to adopt her child, and Dr. Brown met the challenge once again. She then, in 1966, when why can't I say that word? Redistricting opened the door for a black candidate. Dr. Brown actually ran and won in the state legislature. Okay, so she
Breaking
became
down barriers.
breaking down once again, because she became the first black woman representative to the state legislature in Tennessee.
Wow.
Dr. Brown has many honors, and thank you, Dr. Brown, for breaking down all of these barriers, all of these walls, so that Dr. Aaliyah Brown and I could come through behind you.
That's right.
And break down
Literally
even more
come
barriers.
through.
We came through.
Through Meharry.
And exactly. And so, you know, you broke down so many barriers for us, and we're breaking down barriers for
The next
people
generation
to come behind us. And so, Dr. Dorothy Brown, I salute you. Until we meet next time, thank you so much for tuning in. You're watching Health Tips with the Nation's Bedside Doctor on Clark TV Network, where we believe in the future. Take care.